PowerBoat Television is sponsored by Sea-Doo. When it comes to recreation, there is no contest. And BoatBuys.com, 20,000 boats online.
Hi, I'm Mike Gridley and welcome to PowerBoat Television. Over the years, we've covered a lot of different cruising destinations on the show and had a lot of great viewer feedback, including questions on how to get started with the cruising lifestyle. Well, I started with the 24-foot Express, the perfect and affordable entry point. So this week on the show, we're going to take a closer look at some of the more popular entry-level cruisers, starting with this Bayliner 255.
When we selected this Bayliner Express cruiser last summer, we had no idea that the company would cease production of their cruiser line later in the year. That's unfortunate, but since Bayliner had a major role in getting people into their first cruiser, you'll find an abundance of models like this 255 on the used market. When hopping aboard a prospective model, check out the swim platform in the cockpit. Out on the water, this is where you will spend a lot of your time. Make sure the platform has a good anti-skid pattern and that the swim ladder drops deep enough into the water to ease getting aboard. Features like the L-shaped aft seating with storage in the base will be comfortable and practical. Also make sure there is a good-sized removable cockpit table to enjoy meals in the open. Checking out the helm, ensure the adjustment range fits your size to ensure comfort. And look for the extras like this Bayliner 255's flipping backrest that expands the cockpit seating into a great lounge area. One of the many pluses of owning a pocket cruiser is the ability to trailer your boat to new waters with your own tow vehicle or by having it hauled for you.
Entry-level cruisers come in a wide array of price points, and it's not just about the finishes, it's about the amenities and the extras in the boat. So before you jump in, you really have to ask yourself some questions. Basically, how am I going to use this boat? Is it going to be a day boat? Are you looking for short weekends away? Or are you looking for longer cruises, a week or more out and sitting at anchor? Now, who's going to be on board is also really important. Is this for a couple or are you traveling with the family? So when you answer all those questions, it's a good time to start looking.
The interior accommodations in this Bayliner 255 will work well for a family of 4 for a weekend and will certainly make a couple comfortable for longer cruises. The mid-cabin will be ideal for 2 kids or a couple's gear. The V-berth can be employed for dining, lounging, or left made up as a berth while you enjoy the cockpit. Finally, have a look at the galley and see if it stacks up with your usage plans. Can the cupboards handle tableware and glassware for extended stays, or will you be picnicking? The same goes for the refrigerator, but in all small cruisers, you will need a cooler for drinks and more. As a minimum, the galley should have a single burner alcohol electric stove and a single sink. This Bayliner has a few extra features like a fold-away counter extension and a microwave. When it's time for the on-water test, ensure that you spend some time out there, as I did running up and down Buckhorn Lake. If possible, bring some family and friends to simulate a boat loaded for cruising. Make sure the power is up to the task like the 260 horsepower Mercury 5-liter MPI coupled to a Bravo 3 drive on our 255 was.
Bayliner is certainly well known for a full range of value-priced boats, and the 255 is no exception. They've done an exceptional job here of packaging up a great cruiser in a modest size at a modest price.
Later in the show, we'll continue our look at entry-level cruisers.
Time for Power Profile, brought to you by BoatTest.ca.
It's been a lot of cool boats launched by Sea Ray since 1959, with many innovations along the way. However, this week's Power Profile, the 2013 Venture 370, sets a new level of cool based on some innovative power.
At first glance, the 370 Venture is a sleek and modern-looking express cruiser, a refreshing and contemporary design. It's only the transom that hints at something new.
Well, the big innovation with the Venture 370, of course, is the power. And the power is by Mercury. Both engines are now running. Do you hear anything? That's the innovation. Let's go look at the power. So it's at the transom underneath the twin sun pads where this power innovation is. Twin Mercury Verado 300 outboards.
Mercury has incorporated a few changes with these Verados for this application. First, the engine cowl has been modified to incorporate a snorkel that delivers fresh air from the side vents in the hull. The second and critical mod is the exhaust bypass that transfers exhaust fumes outboard via hoses in stainless through hulls at idle to ensure CO2 does not build up inside the engine boxes. As well, the outboards tilt completely clear of the water, tucked under the swim platform. Great for saltwater or beaching the boat. The engines are 300 horsepower, 300 CXL Verado 6-cylinder supercharged 4-strokes, well known for their performance, efficiency, and quietness. So with the engines aft, where are the balance of the mechanicals? Lifting a hatch in the cockpit reveals a spacious lazarette with all of the systems, batteries, pumps, and optional generator. Getting underway, the outboards spool up quickly, reaching a comfortable cruising speed just over 30 miles per hour in a little more than 12 seconds. Cruising along, the low sound levels were truly astounding. Sea Ray has done an excellent job of isolating the outboards under the solid gasketed hatches, but there's more at play. The 370 is manufactured to Sea Ray's quiet ride specifications that employs a host of techniques to silence noise and vibrations. With the engine set back well aft, the cockpit is enormous with an L-shaped settee starboard and a U-shaped settee around a solid teak table to port. The Sea Ray incorporates the starboard behind the helm seating a full galley with refrigerator, sink, and an induction stove. Behind the helm is a double-wide seat with bolsters. The helm itself features an upper row of SmartCraft and ancillary gauges, toggle switches protected by guards down low, and room for a large navigational display. Below, space abounds as well. The mid-cabin is full beam and serves as the master. The double berth is placed on a 45-degree angle, flanked by night tables, with a sofa opposite. The mid-cabin is open to the salon, contributing to the openness that is magnified by the large hull windows. Truly the most expansive you will find in the class. The salon is forward with a large U-shaped seating arrangement around the dining table. The configuration is like a V-berth, and it does convert to one. However, calling it one does it a disservice. Large windows allow light to flow in, and above these surrounding the area are overhead cabinets and multiple recessed lights. Between the salon and the mid-cabin is the galley to port and the head to starboard. The galley features a solid surface counter, sink, microwave, coffee maker, dual voltage refrigerator, and minimal cupboard space. However, the abundant lockers forward compensate for this. The head has a vacuum flush toilet, solid surface sink and counter, vanity, shower with curtain to protect the vanity, power vent, and teak floors.
Innovative? You bet. But more than that, the 370 Venture wins on style, spacious accommodations, and performance. So all around, the 370 should be a real winner.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BoatBuys.com. Ready to buy? Then head to BoatBuys.com, where you'll find thousands of new and used boats for sale.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. Now, Sea Ray is one of the best known brands in boating, and they have a lot of experience building cruisers upwards through 61 feet in length. So there's a lot of expertise that they can bring to their entry level or pocket cruiser, this model, the 240 Sundancer. So let's take a closer look.
With an overall length of 24 feet 10 inches, the Sundancer is the smallest of our test group, making it a great package to trailer as well. But don't let that fool you. This Sea Ray is packed full of features. Some of the hull and deck features that make this a Sea Ray are the welded stainless steel bow rail, stainless opening ports with screens, and a stainless rub rail insert. And by the way, note the 8-inch stainless midship cleat. Many boats lack this, leaving you with nowhere to hang a fender. One item often overlooked when shopping for your first cruiser is the canvas package. Based on where you boat, make sure it meets your needs of headroom and screens to keep the bugs out. With some boats, the canvas may even be an option. When checking out the cockpit, don't forget to consider the deck space as well as the seating. Make sure there's room enough to move around comfortably. In the cockpit, it's not only the seating configuration that you should be concerned with, it's the quality of the construction as well. Check the thickness of the foam padding, the neatness of the stitching, and ask about the weight of the vinyl and foam density used. All areas that Sea Ray excels at. After confirming that the helm is comfortable, what about the panel? The Sundancer sports a complete set of Mercury SmartCraft instruments that provide comprehensive engine and system information. Also confirm that there is adequate space for optional electronics on the panel. Again, below decks, think of how you will use the cruiser and how many will be on board. The 240 Sundancer is similar in size to the Bayliner, so it's ideal for a couple. The layout is the same as it is on most entry-level cruisers. So when comparing boats and price points, look at the finishes and extras that make the difference, like upgraded textiles and faux wood finishes, a wood dinette table, and a teak table for the cockpit. Check out the amount of storage the cabin has, and again look for opening ports for ventilation. I'm surprised how many cruisers lack this. And again, with every boat you are considering, spend time on the water. Try out the boat's performance and acceleration. Impressive performance numbers when testing will ensure you are not disappointed later when you gear up and fuel up. When comfortably on plane, put the cruiser through its paces with turns of various rates to see how it handles. If the waters are calm, as they were on the Rideau Canal, circle and jump your own wake to see how the boat handles rough water. Needless to say, the Sea Ray Sundancer, with its Mercruiser 5-liter MPI and Bravo 3 drive that ensured that all of the 260 horsepower hooked up performed flawlessly.
Now, whether you're cruising to distant shores, trailering to a new lake, or just hanging out on the boat for the weekend, this 240 Sundancer is a well-optioned, excellent package that can get you started in the cruising lifestyle. Later in the show, we'll have more on entry-level cruisers.
Here's this week's Mercury Marine My Boat feature.
Close quarter maneuvering and docking can make even an experienced boater a little bit nervous. Now, to get around that, you might want to consider installing a thruster. So this week on My Boat, we're going to install a side shift stern thruster. Well, now that we've got the boat on shore, the first task here is going to be to dry fit all of the hardware, the mounting brackets, to select the correct position for the stern thruster. And it has to be at least 5.5 inches below the waterline on the boat, or deeper if at all possible.
Task 1 was to assemble the optional stern extension mount and mounting bracket to clear the transom anode and locate the thruster well below the waterline. When assembling the system, it is key that you use the supplied anti-seize compound on all of the stainless hardware. With this done, the mounting brackets were secured to the stern thruster. After marking the center line, a pair of helping hands aided in positioning the stern thruster and marking its mounting location. Next, the first mounting hole was drilled, then the backing plate was used as a template to mark and drill the other holes. To ensure the transom was watertight, a generous amount of below-the-waterline sealant was applied to the holes and surface. Finally, the thruster was lifted into place and the mounting bolts inserted. On the inside of the transom, more sealant was applied. The backing plate was then slid onto the bolts and the washers and lock nuts secured.
Now we're finished with the real messy stuff, drilling the holes through the hull and working with the Sikaflex as always. Now we're going to move on to the electrical hookup, starting with the cables here from the motors to the inside of the transom to the control box.
first holes were drilled for the air vent line and 2 power cables. Then the vent line was inserted through the transom as well as both power cables. Next, a generous amount of sealant was applied to all of the holes and forced into the transom by working the cables. Additional sealant was also applied inside the transom. The stern thruster's motor controller was mounted on the transom. Next, the 12-volt motor cables were cut to the length required, then stripped, and the supplied compression terminals were installed. The last prep was to apply the heat shrink tubing to the connection. The port motor cable was then attached to Terminal 1 and the starboard to Terminal 2 on the motor controller. For safety, terminal boots were also installed. After making up the correct length of battery cables, utilizing the supplied wire, compression terminals, and heat shrink tubing, the negative cable was connected to the negative terminal on the controller and to the battery common ground terminal. And the positive was connected from the controller to the positive terminal on the first 1000 amp battery. A jumper cable was run from the first battery to a second 1000 amp battery to deliver the required power.
Well, we've got all of the major mechanicals and major heavy gauge wiring for the batteries and power. Next up is the control system, and you're going to want to mount that close to where your shifters are. So I'm going to select this location on the helm for the joystick.
Using a hole saw, the mounting hole was made in the helm. After laying the template over the mounting hole, the holes for the mounting bolts were drilled. Finally, the joystick was set in place and the bolts secured from the underside of the helm. After fishing the control cable from the engine compartment, the connector was hooked up to the multi-wires in the cable and plugged into the joystick. The final hookup at the helm was connecting a positive line to the ignition to turn the system on. Back at the control unit, ring terminals were crimped on the individual wires, which were connected to the appropriate terminals on the controller. After a quick dry land test, it was time to splash the boat. Putting the side shift stern thruster to the test clearly demonstrated how well it helped position the stern while docking. Rotating the boat in its own length was greatly enhanced by the thruster, quickly accelerating it around. And yes, while underway, the side shift stern thruster was well clear of the water.
Well, it took us a day to install side shift stern thruster, and it really was straightforward. If you've got some basic mechanical skills and a little bit of electrical system knowledge, you can take this on as your own DIY project, and it's a great investment. This twin inboard cruiser generally handles quite well around the docks, but the addition of the stern thruster builds the confidence that much better. The boat rotates faster, and you can actually make it walk sideways.
Here's another boat locker tip.
One option not found on entry-level cruisers are generators. Now, a perfect solution for that is to bring along a portable unit like this Yamaha unit. These portables are ideally suited for charging house batteries and operating entertainment systems. And this Yamaha 1000 watt is the smallest in their inverter line, weighing in at only 12.7 kilograms. Inverter generators deliver pure sine wave, clean AC power, ensuring sensitive electronics and computer-controlled systems will perform properly without damage. If the plans for your entry-level cruiser include spending more time on the water, covering greater distances, you may wish to consider moving up to a slightly larger express cruiser like this Rinker 260 EC.
Dockside, Rinker's smallest of their express cruiser lineup, looked noticeably larger. The Bayliner 255, our first entry-level cruiser, had an overall length of 25 feet 1 inch. The Sea Ray 240 measured 24 feet 10 inches, and this Rinker comes in at 28 feet 6 inches. Obviously, this translates into a bigger cockpit with a reasonably sized refreshment center that conceals a much appreciated marine cooler. Overall, the cockpit layout remains the same, with a settee forward to port and a double-wide helm seat. Once again, check out the storage options the seating arrangement provides. Like the space in the transom, which has access from the cockpit and from the transom above the great-to-have rumble seat. Often overlooked when comparing boats is the all-important passage up and through the windshield. The single step molded into the Rinker's helm is not as well executed as those on the Bayliner or Sea Ray. Incorporating the steps into the helm also resulted in the low placement of the chart plotter. Not ideal at all. Stepping up to a slightly larger express cruiser also added an anchor locker with windlass, a valued addition for serious cruising.
Well, the beam remains the same as our other two entry-level cruisers at 8.5 feet. The extra length here does show up as a noticeable difference in interior volume.
While it might only be measured in inches, the Rinker 260 did have a little more room around the dinette that would make kicking back to watch some TV a little more comfortable.
Now, as funny as this might look, one of the things you're going to want to do when you're checking out your entry-level cruiser candidates is sit down in the head and make sure that the size and the space in here is going to be functional for you.
While the 260's mid-cabin was similar in size to the Bayliner and Sea Ray, the entrance was more open and the screen port was a welcome addition. Finally, the nicely finished galley matched the other candidates in features and size. On the water, the Rinker 260 EC was a solid performer with its larger Mercruiser 350 mag. This V8's 300 horsepower was certainly needed since the 260 weighed in at 7,000 pounds versus the Sea Ray's 5,500. Testing was on the cruising waters of Georgian Bay, an ideal spot, and through all of our normal testing routines, the Rinker 260 EC shone.
Cruising on a budget doesn't mean you can't do it in comfort. With its reasonable purchase costs and operating costs, the Rinker 260 EC is an excellent choice for spending time on the water. Getting out on the water to enjoy the cruising lifestyle is definitely not an activity that follows the adage, go big or go home. To get you started without breaking the bank, Bayliner, Rinker, and Sea Ray all have models that make great entry-level cruisers.
Join us next week on the show as we start a spectacular cruise through Georgian Bay's 30,000 islands.
PowerBoat Television has been sponsored by Sea-Doo and BoatBuys.com. To watch the show on broadband or for any questions or comments, visit us at PowerBoatTV.com or follow us on Twitter.